What we're going to be doing tonight is creating a magical item crafting system that you would find in RPGs. So I'm going to be doing some C#. I'm going to be using VS Code, and we're going to be doing some object-oriented programming. For the ones that are in my class and feel like joining me, cool. Glad to see you here. For the ones that are not in my class, that's perfectly fine. I'm not doing a lecture. This is more of a programming challenge, but I will be describing what I do in detail, and I will be going over the code in detail. And basically, we're going to do some basic if statements, basic switch statements, but then we're going to also do some more sophisticated stuff that C# has, in that we're going to be doing switch expressions, pattern matching, and a lot of different ways of basically accomplishing the same goal, using the traditional methods that can, but also going to be using modern approaches so that we can make things more readable, more concise, and you can pick your flavor of how you like to program. So we'll be doing things with records, we'll be doing things with tuples, we'll be using a lot of different things that I will explain, null coalescence operators, there'll be a lot of things that you may not have seen before, and so we'll be getting started. But to do this, we're going to start step by step. First, we're going to understand what the problem is we're trying to build by mapping out our classes and their relationships using something called UML. I'll show you how to create these diagrams using Mermaid.js. I've been using Draw.io in the past where I drag and drop things, but because I'm getting tired of my mouse always messing that up, I'm going to do this with text. So that's basically why. Then we'll convert the actual UML diagrams into C# class structures. After that, we'll implement all the game logic, things like checking if ingredients are compatible and calculating the quality of our crafted items. And finally, we'll put it all together in a working program that lets us test our crafting system. So whether you're new to C# or an experienced developer, there should be something interesting here for everyone. So let's get started by looking at how we can use UML diagrams to plan out the system. But before I want to do that, I'm going to actually create the folder and I've already created the folder. I'm going to look into the actual requirements I'm going to have so that we can make the UML. And I'm going to just type them at my top of my program.cs. And you can follow along if you want. I will release the code after it's tidied up and everything. And I will post a link on both the Twitch description, and when I export to YouTube, the YouTube description. I will post the code into It's Learning for my students, and so you'll have it some way or another. So first, I'm going to have, it's going to be a magical item crafting system, which basically means I'm going to be combining two ingredients together and getting a result. So like you could combine, like for instance, an herb and an elixir or an herb and potion or something like that and get a result out. So the core requirements I'm going to set forth for us are, first, allow users to combine two magical ingredients to create new items. Second, each ingredient must have the following attributes. Name, which is going to be a string. An element, which we're going to make an enum for, an enumeration or a named value. Fire, ice, earth, air, and spirit. And then I'm going to have a potency, which is going to be an integer, like basically 1 to 10 potency. Type, which is going to be, and this can differ for you. You can put whatever you want here, but for me, I'm just going to do something basic. I'm going to have, and that's type. That should be like type. I should have crystal, herb, herb, not metal, and essence. There we go. And then I will have a rarity, which I can type. And that will be common, uncommon, rare, or legendary. And if you want, you can add mythical and other things later, but this is just to start with. 3. Okay, so crafting should produce a result containing the name of the crafted item, the quality score, 0.0. I'll use a normalized value, it's 1.0, 0 to 100% if you want to say. Success or failure status, was it successful in crafting or not? And a special effect message. There are certain potencies and rarities and also elements that I might combine together to get a special effect, basically. I'll show you what I mean by that in a bit. Okay, and then the crafting table itself should have 2 slots for ingredients. Now, that's not always true in games. You can have more if you want, but I'm just making things simple, so we're just going to add 2 ingredients together, and then have that be the only things you can combine. Most simpler games are like that. Validate the ingredient placement, making sure that the ingredients we get in actually exist when we actually are calling that method. We're going to check to see if the ingredients are compatible. And we're going to calculate the resulting quality of putting 2 things together. Basically, if you have a common and a legendary, it might be different than if you have 2 legendary items. And we're going to generate the appropriate result message based on that. Oh, wow, I can't spell that at all. I can spell, I'm just not typing all tonight. I've been typing all day, so kind of gotten there. And then we will have a recipe management system. And that should, I guess I use tabs for the rest. I'll use tabs here, fine. I like to be a little consistent. I'm going to tidy this up later anyway, but left for me to do. And that is going to validate the ingredient combinations. Determine appropriate results items and apply special effects based on the combinations. Those are the core requirements. I'm going to also have some game logic or compatibility rules. And I'm going to go over those real quick and we're going to implement them. So I'm not going to go thoroughly into them, but I want you to know what the equations I'm going to use are basically. So I'm going to go ahead and list them. So those are the core. And now we will also have, let's see, I really want to say this is the core requirement here. We'll say game logic rules are next. All right, so game logic rules. And this is more of our calculations. So ingredient compatibility rules. And yours can be different, you can have different rules for what you do. This is just what I'm going to do. Combined potency cannot exceed 10, prevents creation of overpowered items. Opposing elements, fire and ice, earth and air, that sort of thing, require both ingredients to have a potency of greater than or equal to 8. Basically, if you combine some weak fire and ice, you're going to get water. If you have some very potent ingredients, then maybe it can overcome the fact that it would produce water. That's the whole idea with that. So let's see. And we'll say only master crafters can handle the volatile ingredients. Which really isn't, I'm not going to have a crafter per se, but this is kind of the way I'm looking at it. And then we will have legendary ingredients. cannot be paired with common ingredients. You put those two together, nothing's going to happen. Legendary items are too powerful to work with basic materials. And strong potency, 8 to 10, cannot be paired with weak potency, 1 to 3. All right, energy levels are 2, I'm going to say discordant, to create stable items. Basically, the potency is how stable the item is. A very weak potency is going to be very chaotic. You can't produce it, so you can't match up strong with weak because you won't create anything stable. It's just game rules. Again, your game rules can vary. This is why I say like all these types of rules, the core requirements can be very similar, but your game logic rules might change based on how you want to develop your game. These are just what I want to do for tonight. Let's see, quality calculations. So for that, we will have a base quality to start with, and that is going to be equal to ingredient 1 dot potency plus ingredient 2 dot potency over 2 times the maximum potency, which is 10, as we've said. So what we do here is we sum the potencies to get a total magical power. We divide by 2 times max potency because, let me see if I can get the, yes, there's going to be a VOD from this, definitely. So don't worry about that. There will be a VOD from this, both on Twitch and YouTube. And yeah, so I can't seem to find a way of doing it. It's learning any of the files say they're too big, so I'm trying to figure that out still. But it will definitely be on Twitch and YouTube. Max potency is 10, the highest possible potency value. Then we multiply this by 2 because we're combining 2 ingredients. Get my, guess I can do that. The Twitch chat over here is very, very large. Let me see if I can refresh that. Might be able to. Okay, let's try that. This is very large font on my screen, so I'm like, okay, there we go. That way I can read. I have other screens viewing the chat, but it was just very hard to read on my main one. So I'm like, wow, that's very large. Okay. So anyway, yes. So yes, we multiply by 2 because we're combining two ingredients. So this was going to create a scale where, and then yeah, for uploading, it's something you can make a doc with. Yeah, that's the thing. I can do that, and I can even make an announcement with the links on YouTube. But I've been trying to find a way of doing it without YouTube because technically our SoMe policy says we can't require people to go to YouTube. They don't say anything about Twitch yet, but they say we can't make people go to YouTube because data thing. In fact, I'm surprised no one's complained. I don't think I disabled ads yet. I forgot to do that. I meant to. Let's see. I don't know if I got too much things going on, I think, to even get to the screen where I can do that. So apologies if there are ads. But normally I don't do educational streams with ads, but I guess this is kind of an exception anyway. So this is kind of me doing my thing. All right, so 2 ingredients at max potency is 10 plus 10 over 2 times 10, which equals 1.0. So that's perfect quality. Just to explain why I'm doing this particular math. 2 ingredients at minimum potency So that would be 1 plus 1 over 2 times 10 is equal to 0.1, which is going to be very poor quality. And then without the times 2, quality would exceed 1.0 for most combinations. So this is why I'm doing this particular math in case you're wondering. Example, without the 2, we would have 10 plus 10 over 10, which is equal to, that's going to be 2.0, which breaks our 0 to 1 scale. All right, that should be good. And just to show you what an average one would be, so 2 average ingredients, 5 plus 5 over 2 times 10 is equal to 0.5. And so I eventually correct my spelling on things. Medium quality. There we go. It's not that I don't know how to spell it. It's like the typing is bad. Okay, so that's why I'm doing that calculation. That is the quality calculation, but we also have a rarity bonus representing the enhance magical resonance of rare materials. So here's our rarity bonuses. What I'm going to use for this. Let's just do here. 2 legendary. I'll do legendary. That's going to be, we're going to add 0.5. Perfect magical harmony, we'll say. Then 1 legendary, which gives the bonus of 0.3, which is powerful, but not perfectly harmonized. And let's see, 2 rare stars. That's going to be plus 0.2. Good magical resonance. And 1 rare, I think. No, I'm not going to do 1 rare. We'll do 2 of the same rarity instead. That'd be a little bit different to show an example of how to do that. Because there is a special way we'll have to do that. 0.1 matched magical resonances. Or frequencies, we'll say. Okay, so that will then get us our final quality cat at 1.0. So you add the 2 up. All right, so quality determines, and we're not going to have this, but item durability, if we want to implement that, and then strength and magical effects. Again, these aren't going to actually do anything. It's a crafting system. We're not going to have the actual items to do things, but just to say things that we possibly could later do things with for the quality. We could say market value when selling. We could say crafting experience gained. So all those could be affected if we wanted. I'm not going to implement that tonight, but that is some things that you do based on the quality of the thing you produce. And then we have our crafting result rules. Crafting result rules. And that's going to be based on the type of thing that we craft. So that is crystal plus herb. And for me, I'm going to say that is equal to a potion. Why not? Liquid magic for immediate use. Then I'm going to have a metal plus crystal is equal to amulet. Permanent enchanted item. And then I'm going to have an herb plus an essence is an elixir. Yeah, if I can spell, elix. Thank you. There we go. Okay. Powerful, but temporary effect. So we have a one shot for potion, immediate use. We have something that will do a temporary effect, effect over time, that sort of thing. And again, they aren't actually going to do anything, but that's what I'm saying they're going to do. And then other combinations, because there's still some that we might have possible, and we're going to use a switch, so we're going to have a default. And in case we haven't defined anything, I would say equals mixture, generic magical item. Quality tiers affect the item power. And we'll say, oh, I think it's less than equals 0.3. It's going to be poor quality. Then we'll say less than equal to 0.6. It's going to be average quality. Yeah, it's quality. So less than equals 0.8. It's going to be good. And less than equals 0.9. Excellent. And then a greater than 0.9 is, we're going to call it masterwork. All right, so basically great effect. Okay, so those are the crafting results. And I want to also have a special effect. Special effects, which enhance the base item properties. All right, so for this, same elements, resonating power is the name of that effect. Doubles elemental effect strength. And again, like I said, this is just a crafting thing. These aren't actually going to do anything, but it will say it's like resonating power. That's about it. Fire plus ice. We're going to call it, since they can only be done with potent items, we'll say this creates a thermal shock. Otherwise, it would create water, right? Adds damage over time effects. For any spirit combination, spirit's different. It doesn't really have an opposing element like fire and ice do. We're going to have a spiritual infusion. Adds, and we'll say, let's see, duration boost. I'll also do one for earth and air. And we'll do a dusty whirlwind. And for that, I'll say that adds an area of effect, or area of effect component. Yes. Let's see. Very the same elements. I believe, let's see. Yeah, that should be fine. We'll say, I think I'll do dominant fire. If they're both fire. Can't remember if I do that or not. Burning adds fire damage. And then dominant ice. Freezing. You can do more, but I'm just giving some examples here. I'm not going to say everything, I think. I could always add later. Spirit is secondary. If it's, if spirit is one of the components or ingredients, then we'll say it's ethereal. I assume I added that in somewhere. Adds magic penetration. Okay. So those are the special effects. Let's see, what else do I want to say about them? Special effects stack with quality tier bonuses. For example, a masterwork burning potion would have, say, 125% base effectiveness plus fire damage. And again, these are just sort of in my head. Excellent. Resonating power amulet would have 100% effectiveness those things. With double elemental string. Okay. And I think that's enough of just going off the top of my head. Okay. Design notes for this. I was making stuff up basically. One, we're going to use records for the ingredient and crafting result because, well, properties should be immutable once created. A record is like a very lightweight class that you can't change after you create it. It's a data holder only, and I'll show you how to create one. But if you've never created a record before, it's meant for data that never changes, like a property that doesn't have any setter after you, and just has a getter. You cannot change it once it's created. So it's like that, but it has multiple different properties in it. So very lightweight class that you cannot have things that change after it. So pretty much only read-only properties. And it's very simple to define those. And they're very efficient, so that's why we're using it. Let's see. Let's see. Reduces the boilerplate code that we'd have to have for classes because it's like a one-line statement. It really is. It's very simple to make those. Let's see. Using enums for elements, ingredient type, and rarity because, and that I'm saying they provide a fixed set of valid values. They prevent invalid values. If you just use like an integer and someone typed one that wasn't in your set of integers, then it would be invalid. This prevents that from happening. And they act, let's see, or they make, or they make code more readable. It's easier to read a name than a number. Three, we're going to use using a static recipe manager. I'll go that into more detail. I'm just going to do a very short note on it, but basically this is a static class, which means that you can only ever have one copy of it. Unlike most classes where you create many objects from, we will only ever be able to create one of these things. It's like having, say, a rule book in a game. Like, say, you have Dungeons and Dragons that you're playing, or some other game that has a rule book. Everyone's going to share the same rule book. They're not going, and they're going to refer to it. They're not going to create multiple and multiple and multiple. They're just going to have that same rule book that they refer to. So that's very much like what we're doing here. We don't really need the recipe rules are universal. We don't need to create multiple recipe rules that are going to be used elsewhere. So we're just going to create one set. Rules are universal, and I've already given you the rules that we've been going through. We have no need for multiple instances, objects, or if you want to say copies, if you want. And it acts as a central authority for valid combinations. Lastly, we'll have our crafting table. Crafting table methods. And we'll have just a public add ingredient and attempt crafting and a private check compatibility and calculate quality. These are public because other classes can use them if we want. These are private to keep your actual formulas, even though I've typed it out here in comments, keep your actual rules secret. So if you didn't have this, if it were not for just, this is what we're doing tonight, then you could keep that private and not let anyone see your special formula. Okay, So now we actually are going to dive into the UML. And I mentioned I'm not using draw.io tonight. I am using Mermaid instead. Let's see, which you can look at here, which was just a JavaScript thing that won some awards several years back, about in 2019, I think. But basically, you can create a UML diagram and you can look at how you do that. And you create other diagrams too. It does flowchart, sequence, Nat chart, or Gantt chart says. And we do a lot of other charts, but we're going to create class diagrams with this. And I've already got the live editor up, and that's here. It's just like mermaid.live. So I'm going to give you an example of how this works. So basically, when you're building something complex in the game, like designing a base or planning out a city, you usually sketch it out first. And that's exactly what we're going to do here in programming. We create blueprints using something called Mermaid.js. This is going to use UML to do it. I've been using drag and drop with draw.io for sketching the UML class diagrams like this, but Mermaid is a simple scripting language that lets you easily just type in the class diagram instead of having to drag and drop. And it can be quicker, especially when your mouse, like mine, doesn't work so well with dragging and dropping, but I'm still refusing to replace it because I like it so much. So let me show you how simple it is just to create something. It's not related to the magic thing, but just to show you how this works. Class diagram. First line. Okay, so we have a, let's say, class dog. And it's already got that up there. All right, so we got a class dog, and we're going to put a brace with a closed brace. And so that will start our class. So we're going to do plus, which will already do a plus sign on it, which is all we need, name. And plus means public if you don't know in UML. And bark will be a method. And you can see how it's separated because we put the parentheses, it separated that already into the properties and into the behaviors or operations in UML, they're called. You can call them methods, you can call them operations, you can call them behaviors, but they're what that actually do things. These hold data, these do things. And then we'll create a class owner. And for this, I will use a public string name, and I will say that the owner can feed dog. And then we can say that these have a relationship with each other. I'm going to use an association relationship. You can use other types, and there are definitions of how to do these. And dog. And there we go. Now that's simple. So this is why I'm doing it like this. This is very, very simple to create these things. You can even do compositions if you want. I think it's like star. Forget which way it is. I'll have to look into it, but you can do all sorts of things. Star dash. Yeah, just star actually. It's that without the arrow. You don't use an arrow for composition. You can do dotted for just regular dependencies. I think inheritance is. I forget. I'll have to look up inheritance again. It's not that. But there is a whole list of these things. Let's see. Inheritance, I think is what is their inheritance? Well, I've forgotten. I'll forget. I'll remember later. But the documentation is over here, so you can always look and see what the syntax is. It's probably this guy here that might be Mm, yeah, that's going to be it. So we could say like if it inherited from that, then you could use the hollow. You can still change the arrow type. This doesn't make too much sense, but you can. Anyway, that's basically how easy it is to create something with mermaid.js. We're going to create our system now. So to do this, let's go ahead and say class diagram. And it'll give you an error until you actually put some classes in it. Class element, which is actually an enumeration, which is fine, but I will label it as one, enumeration. It has some things that you can label like that. When you put the double left and right braces, you can label things. So it will put that on top of the name of the actual class. In this case, we're going to have fire, ice. I don't think I need comments in. No, I don't. Earth, and then we do air, spirit. Simple as that. Next, we'll have class ingredient type. And for that, I will have another enumeration. And this is going to have crystal, herb. It's going to have a metal and essence. And then we'll have a class rarity. We have several classes. I don't know why I'm saying it like we're done. We're not done. Enumeration, and that's going to be common, uncommon, rare, legendary. Let's see. And then we do have our record class ingredient. And for ingredient, we have record. And that one is going to have just very basic information, name, um, elements. It's going to reference the three different enumerations we have. And we're going to have an integer for potency. We're going to have ingredient type. Yeah, I could either name it type or ingredient. So I think in the code I named it type, so I'm just going to name it type there. And I am going to do rarity. There we go. There's a record. And then we will have our class, which actually is a class this time. And it will be crafting table. And for that, we have a constant. I'm going to do a private as well. Const int max potency is equal to 10. You don't have to put that, by the way, in there. For UML, you don't usually put that, but I'm going to just to show it. Then we have ingredient. The question mark in C# means that it can hold a value of null in absence of a value. So I'm going to do that for slot 1, and then ingredient slot 2, because we have 2 slots. Then I'm going to do a public bool add ingredient method. And this is going to take in an ingredient. And it's also going to take in what slot the ingredient goes into. And again, for UML, you don't always list these, you just list the types usually, but just to be clear about what we're doing, I'm going to do that. Yeah, it's kind of nice, the mermaid. I only found it recently. I don't even know how I ended up finding it, but I'm like, this is kind of nice. I was looking for something, I think, when my mouse was having issues. I was like, okay, I need something that I don't have to drag and drop all the time. And this seems to be working pretty well. It's supported by GitHub, and so, and Git in general. Let's see, and then we'll have crafting result. And that will be attempt crafting is the name of that method. And that, I don't think, do we need, yeah, we don't take in anything. So there's that one. And then I'm going to have a private method called calculate quality, which I've already mentioned. It's going to return a decimal. In C#, for other languages that don't have decimal, I'm saying this for C#, when you deal with currency or numbers that you want to be very accurate with, then decimal is the way to go. Even though we don't have some particular need for this type of accuracy, it is 128 bits. It's the highest accuracy for a floating point number. And that should be that. And then we will have a static class, recipe manager. And then I'm going to do static to label it as static. Remember, you can't create multiple of these. So you label typically static classes when you have them because you can only have one. Anything that says manager at the end of a class name, you typically only have one of those. And this is meant to be just to manage other things in your classes and other things in your program. So you typically just have a static managers, and that's very common. and we'll have a bool is valid combination. And for that, I'm going to take in ingredient first and ingredient second. And I will do the same thing for string and determine the results. And this will be ingredient first, ingredient second. Okay. And then we need to create the links between everything because as you can see, there's nothing linked up. So crafting table. That one we already know references are enums, so that is going to be and because they're just enums and not classes, I'm going to use a very loose dependency, which is going to use a dotted arrow, which it doesn't mean association, it just means temporary dependency or as loose as you can possibly get, and that is going to be related to ingredients. And then I'm going to do the same thing for crafting table. And I'm going to do what else we have? See, we did ingredients, crafting result. How to create a crafting result? I forgot to create a crafting result. Yeah, I forgot to create my crafting result. So I'll go up and create them. Like it's creating it for me. I'm like, oh, well, that's even nice to see. But that I put right above crafting table. We have to have an actual result of things. So this is another class crafting result. Okay, and that one is going to have, just to make sure. I think I did, yeah, that's right. It's a record. That's what it is. It's a record. I was getting confused between crafting table and crafting result. Plus string item name plus decimal, and this is going to be quality. So what do we get? I'm not quality. Thank you. Just quality. Make sure we got that one. Quality. And then we want, let's see, plus bool success to say whether or not we were successful, and plus string message, which is going to be like our special effect. So we get a name, equality, success, message. I think that's all we need for that record. Okay. These are actually pretty nice. Now, I can start connecting things that make sense. So crafting table goes to crafting result and ingredient. It also goes to, I'm missing crafting table to, where's the recipe manager? That should be in there somewhere. The crafting table has where's the recipe manager at? I'm missing it somewhere. Should be a connection between crafting table and recipe manager though. Just trying to remember where it is. Did I miss it somewhere? Sometimes I miss things. I'll just go ahead and make the connection in case I don't see it. But something's got to be connected to that, and that should be an association. That should be recipe manager. Okay, so where is that? There's a crafting result. I'll have to see what my crafting table is about because I may have missed something in my crafting table. Ingredient goes to elements, and these are all our enums. Our ingredient lists all the enums. So that is going to be ingredient type. And then we have ingredient for rarity. And there we go. And you can do like a rough diagram or you can pan and zoom if you want to look at it in different ways. You can full screen it, you can save it. And yeah, so it's kind of a nice little thing. I'm going to leave it just up here because I kind of forgotten where my recipe manager's gone. Somewhere around. I'll have to look because I'm sure it must be in my code. But let me see. Let me look and see where I put that in my code. Where is that? Recipe manager. Recipe manager. That should be. Just looking for it because I'm trying to remember exactly what I'm done here. If I run into some problem, we know what it is. So we'll have to see because it should be a link between the crafting table and the recipe manager. Um, just wondering where that is. So hopefully it's there somewhere. I hope. I hope. If not, then I know there's like something missing here because I don't see crafting table. There is a crafting result, which is that, but that's just a record. So we'll find out. If there's a problem, there's a problem. All right. Anyway, but that is our diagram. I'm just going to leave it like it is. You can save it if you want, and you can make it full screen. But I'm going to leave it in case I find whatever problem I just saw is. Okay, back to the code. We need to start and start slash need to start actually creating some of these things. So first of all, I'm going to create a folder structure. And I think where I want to start is going to be our enums. So what I like to do is look at these diagrams and start where there's the least dependencies. There's nothing pointing from element to something else and nothing pointing from ingredient type to something else or from rarity to something else. That means nothing depends on these. This calls it, but you can define the element enumeration, the ingredient type enumeration, and the rarity enumeration without causing any errors. If I start up here, then we're already going to have this add ingredient causing an error because we won't have ingredient defined. We won't have crafting result defined. So that's already going to cause some errors. And I want to cause as few errors as possible when I'm doing this. And so we have ingredient will probably be next after I do the enumerations. And then we could do crafting result and then crafting table and also recipe manager, and then we'll be done. But we will create the properties and we will create the empty method bodies first. We're not going to put anything in them first. And that's where we're going to have some errors. As soon as we start putting methods in, we'll have some errors when they require return values. Like this bool, I already know I'm going to have an error here because I'm going to have just an empty method body to start with. And that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a sixth one I'm missing somewhere. I know there is. Somewhere there's a sixth. I remember there being 6 problems. So I know there was a already somewhere that I'm missing something. I'll find it though. But let's go ahead and start creating stuff. I will start, I guess, with our enums, like I said. So I'm going to create a folder structure for us. I'm going to create enums folder. That is going to hold our enums, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and I will start with elements.cs. And it's a traditional practice to have like one enum or class or record, one top level thing per file. You don't have to have it that way, but it's a good way to find things, a good way to organize things. For namespaces, they follow the folder structure. I'm going to have this, in other words, have a namespace of magical crafting, which is the root folder, dot not enums. That's dot enums. Now, if we had done it without the dot enums, it's going to complain because the namespace is a way of organizing your classes into related structure, and typically they expect it to follow your folder structure. And that's perfectly fine. I like to have it following folder structure. It's easy to remember. This is a way of grouping related classes together. That's what namespaces do. It's not really anything for compilation so much. It's more for when you write code, this organizes stuff together. Even though it's called a compilation unit, I won't go there. So public enum elements. They're very easy to create. I'm just going to do fire, ice, and earth, air, spirit. Let's say the heart, we might have Captain Planet. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to go and create a new one, and I'm going to call this ingredient type. And put another namespace, and this time we have it defined. So we'll do .enums. I hit tab a lot, so if you're wondering, I don't type that fast. I just hit tab. And there we will have a public enum ingredient type. And for ingredient type, it was crystal, herb, and this is where you can get really creative. Metal, essence. I'm just going to have those 4, but you can have as many as you want to mess with. Okay. And then Our third one is going to be the, let's see what we got, rarity. That's why. And now I need to put it in the namespace, and this will be magical crafting.enums, and public enum and rarity. And if you remember, I use common, uncommon, and I use, what was it, rare and legendary. Okay, those are our enums. And now these three are created. All they had to do was just, be there and have these be named values. So basically, in the back end, this is stored as a 0, this is stored as a 1, this is stored as a 2, this is stored as a 3. You can store it as other things. You can say, hey, start 10, and it will do that. But this is just another way of trying to, or of not having to remember what number is represented by a rarity. Saying a rarity of 1 is common and rarity of 2, or did I start with 0? Is a rarity of common 0? It's much easier to do rarity.common than it is to do 1, 2, 3, 4 that for rarity value. So that's why we use enums to remember this little list of options. Then past the enums, I can start going up a bit. We have that follows up. Now that we have all three of those defined, we can go ahead and do ingredient. And I'm going to do that next. And you'll notice it has a name, element, potency, type, and rarity. Just 5 things. It doesn't have, it's a record, so it doesn't have any methods. The records don't have methods, they just have properties. And they're very simple to create. I'll show you how to do that. For this, I'll create another folder, and I'm just going to call it, I think, I'll call it records probably. Yeah, you can call it models if it's a blueprint for something, so you could call it models. I'm going to call it records because that's what it is. All right, so I'll have a new file. And let's see, what else do I want? It's going to be called ingredient. Yes. And then this is going to be its own namespace. And it's going to be in magical crafting dot records. And now we in this ingredient class or ingredient record, we have a reference to element, we have a reference to ingredient type and rarity, which are 3 enumerations. So we're going to have to be able to get access to those, which are in a different namespace. Remember, we grouped those together in a namespace. To get access to those easily, we use the using directive. And here we can use a file scope. We use file scope namespace. We can use a file scope using and say we want to use the things that are in enums, so magicalcrafting.enums. Right now it will be highlighted in like, a saying the using directives unnecessary, highlighted in this lighter color because, or darker color, I guess, because we're not using anything yet. We're not having coded it yet. So let's put some code in there. See if we can do that. All right, and it's just a one-liner, but I'm going to separate it out to show you both versions. It's not really 2 versions. Public record and give it a name, ingredients. Then I'm just going to say string name, elements, comma. Then int potency, ingredient type, type, and rarity. Like I said, you could use the same name as the enum. If I could say ingredient type here, but it's going to be faster for me to type. The rest I use the name because it's just one word. So, but that's all you have to do is open a parenthesis, put whatever your properties are, just like you're calling a method almost. And so you could have actually put this on one line, and your record just be a single liner, and that would be the same thing. That's how you define a record. But I like to separate it out so we can easily read it later. All right, that's ingredient. Okay, so that's in our records. Now, that is these three plus ingredient created. We could do, what could I do? Want to do next? The recipe manager, if I want, could be there, but I think I'll do the record for crafting result first. It's another record. It'll be in the same namespace as ingredient, so I might as well start there. It's another one-liner, right? We just have the item name, the quality, the success, and the message. So let's create another record, and this is crafting result. Yes. It's in the same namespace as ingredient, and this is magical crafting.records. I don't think I need to use any. Now, these all use primitive types, so I don't have to reference or enums or anything because it doesn't use them. So all we have to do is say public record and do, it's going to be crafting result. That's what it's called. And for this one, we have a string item name. We have a decimal quality. We have a bool success. Did the crafting actually succeed? And a string message, which is going to be our success message. I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's going to be like our success message if we actually succeeded, or it could be a failure message if it failed. That would be, all right, we've got now this done, these three, and this crafting result. So at this point, Recipe Manager seems to be the prudent thing to create. So I will go ahead and create that. That will be, and I will put this in another folder, and this will be like our core classes. So we'll call it core. Our main classes are going to be our recipe manager and our crafting table. Now, if you had other managers, you might think about having a managers folder, and that'd be fine, but we only have the one manager, so I'm going to consider this part of our core classes. And this is going to be recipe manager. Press yes. And I'm going to put it in namespace, magical crafting dot core. Does it use anything for the recipe manager? It uses ingredients, so we do have to actually reference the records because that is a record. But other than that, it doesn't look like it uses anything. So we will go ahead and say using magical crafting.records. Public, and like I said, this is a static class, so we're going to say static class recipe manager, which again means you can only create one of these guys. Public and everything in wow, public. And all the methods inside of a static class need to be static as well. So I'm going to say public static, or at least the public ones. Public static bool is valid combination. And that takes in two ingredients. Both of these take in two ingredients. Ingredient first and ingredient second. I'm going to say that this is our first method, and I'm going to not implement it yet, but it should be implemented. So the rest of the things that we actually put in here are going to cause us issues except for these three things up here. This will cause us issues because it has a return value, and I'm not going to give that yet. That will cause us issues for the same reason, and those will also cause us issues for the same reason. Because I am not, and use crap for casing, I am not going to put method body yet. I will. Just not yet. Public static string determine result. And the main reason is to make sure that they match the UML that we did. Ingredient first, ingredient second. I like to do things step by step. There's certainly the argument to be made that you should put something in there so that you can test it in isolation. But because this is a shorter program and we're just doing it over the course of a couple hours here, then we're going to just go ahead and put like an empty method body. Method body to be implemented. All right, so finally we need our crafting table class. I'm still wondering, where is our results? It's got to be somewhere around. I know I'm still missing it, but somewhere around. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create our core file of And I'm going to get rid of what it just created there. It put a nice little using directive that I'm going to get rid of, but let me create the file first. So we need a crafting table.cs. I'm going to back into the recipe manager and get rid of this that I'd like to put that because I did not write that. I'm going to use the same namespace, and this is going to be one of our core classes, so magicalcrafting.core. We need access to our records for ingredients, but we don't need access to anything else because crafting result is also a record, ingredients a record, so it uses our records. So we'll go ahead and do using magicalcrafting.records. And already I'll create a public class and I will call this crafting table. We'll have the private const int. And by the way, for C sharp, for const, you use Pascal case. For different languages, you use all caps or sometimes, yeah, all caps is typically the other way of doing this for constants. But these are like compiled values. The reason this is a constant that never changes, and it's just a fixed value that would be compiled in, and it's a very quick way of saying this is it's an immutable number. It's not ever going to change once it's set, and it's just going to compile that in our program as the number 10 and have the fastest access possible to it. So it's not really like a variable because it can't vary. So it's just a constant, but it has a type of integer. And then we'll create our private ingredient, which can hold a null, slot 1. Now the convention for C sharp, you can use an underscore or lowercase for private fields, and that's what I'm going to do here. I never did that, and actually like 4 times an hour, I think, or something like that. I don't know what's going on with it right now. I'm not even using it, but whatever. I'll continue to close out that message when it comes up. Okay, so then we have the behaviors, which we have add ingredient, attempt crafting, calculator quality. I need to like change that to calculate quality. There is one I'm missing. Check compatibility, I believe is what I'm missing. Then we need to do a bool check compatibility. Oh, what happened there? My mouse probably did that. Oh, where did I even go? Compatibility. I do control S that's too much sometimes. Okay, so that will have our check compatibility. I don't, surprised I don't have something in there, but okay. Then we'll create those. Public bool add ingredient, and then we'll have ingredient, ingredient, and the slot that we put the ingredient in. And we're not going to put anything in these. Method body to be implemented. We're going to have public crafting result, attempt crafting. You know, maybe our main program references that one class. Maybe method body to be implemented. The manager class that I'm thinking of. I keep forgetting that it's just bugging me. I'm like, where did I use that? And it's probably in our actual program.cs class, which would make sense. Then we have our private, so it might be a line. In fact, just because I don't know where that line would come in, I'm going to go get rid of it, the recipe manager. It's going to be on its own, just to make sure that I know that this is going to match up. All right. And we have check compatibility, method body to be implemented. And yes, you could just copy and paste if you wanted. I'll get a little practice out typing here. Private, and we'll do decimal, and that will be our calculate quality. Did I type those somewhere? It's like, how's it remember what those are? Um, but this will be method body to be implemented. Okay, so that should be the main ones. And as I mentioned, the question mark after ingredients says that these slots can be empty. They're what we call nullable. That means that it can hold the absence of a value. And so it has the possibility of being empty because sometimes a crafting table might not have any ingredients in it to start with. That's why we're doing that there. So let's check out and make sure that we did everything properly. I want to just check simply, slowly, one at a time. Fire, ice, earth, air, spirit. Fire, ice, earth, air, spirit. Crystal, herb, metal, essence. Crystal, herb, metal, essence. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary. Then we'll check our records. Name, element, potency, type, rarity. And name, element, potency, type, rarity. Item name, quality, success, message. Item name, quality, success, message. So we'll check our recipe manager next since it's simpler. We have an invalid combination with two ingredients and a determined result with two ingredients, bool and string. That will be in our core. Is valid combination bool, two ingredients, determined result, two ingredients, string. That matches. I'm also, by the way, just checking to see if things are public and private, just like I have the plus and minus, where minus is private and plus is public. I'm checking that as well. I'm just not reading it out loud. So we have a constant integer for max potency. We already saw this just a second ago. We have private of, yeah, we have constant max potency. We have two private ingredient slots because we're only letting two things combine. And then we have our add ingredient, attempt crafting, check compatibility, calculate quality, add ingredient, attempt crafting, check compatibility, calculate quality, and I've already checked those are private and those were public, and that was the bool, crafting result, bool, and decimal. Everything matches, and that's what we want to see. Now we can actually start implementing the logic of the behaviors, which is going to be messing with add ingredient, attempt crafting, check compatibility, calculate quality, is valid combination, and determine result. This is why I kind of do it this way because at this point, you can pretty much take the UML and put it into any other language and say, okay, well, this matches this format of the language. And right now we're doing C sharp. And we're saying, okay, well, this matches the UML exactly. So we're done. We now know that our plan matches exactly what our code says. So that's good. So now we can actually start to put in the logic of these behaviors, which is kind of what we were trying to do. So let's start with the very first one that I see here. Let's implement the add ingredient method. This method needs to do two things. It needs to check if the slot number is valid, and if it is, put the ingredient in that slot. So here's how we'll write that. I will do this. I'm going to do a simple if statement. The traditional way, I'm not writing it, so I'm going to show you the traditional way, which is if slot not equal to 1 and slot not equal to 2, then that's saying, okay, well, this is an invalid slot. It has to either be passed in as slot 1 or 2. Those are our only slots. We have a first slot, we have a second slot. That's what we're using. That's the traditional way. I'll show you the other way and I'll put comment after it. So here's the more modern pattern matching way. If slot is not 1 and not 2. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and return false here because that means that this is invalid. It's not slot 1, it's not slot 2, and that means invalid slot number. I'm going to show you a lot of different ways of doing the same thing. You can do it the traditional way. You can always go back to this sort of using comparison and logical operators to do things. But these are, I'm going to show you some more modern ways of doing it that are mostly in C sharp. I don't know how many other languages do it this way, but C sharp likes to update the language every year or two and produce new, more concise and more readable ways of doing things when they do update things. This uses pattern matching, and so using is not pattern matching is more readable. when checking multiple values. We didn't have to type slot here twice. We only had to type it once. We're checking this against two patterns. It's not one and it's not two. That's the advantage here, is that it's much more readable than a couple of ampersand signs, which may differ per language. And this not equal, this is just reading it like English right here. It's kind of like a basic, what you used to do at Visual Basic or Quick Basic or every other basic. Very similar. You would well, the wording is, the format is not. And matches the way we might say it out loud if slot is not one and not two. There we go. So that's one thing that we needed to check to see whether or not the slot was empty. And so now we know at this point that the slot has to be one or two, so it's valid. So we use now an if else to handle the actual assignment. So if slot is equal to 1, then we'll set slot 1 equal to the ingredient passed in. Else or otherwise, I like to say otherwise a lot because this really means otherwise. This really means it's one thing is true, otherwise the other thing must be true. Either it's slot 1 or it's anything else. Here we already know that it has to be 1 or 2, so we actually have this be slot 2 is equal to ingredient now. And then since we've set this correctly, we'll return true at the end. Okay, so that fixed any issue with add ingredient. We do validation checks, and a lot of the things when you first make decisions and put decisions in your behaviors, a lot of the things that you do at first are validation checks. That's most of what the if statements are to begin with, and most of what the switches are to begin with are really about validation. Is this going to cause me an issue? And once you know that there are no issues, go on to actually doing what your actual method says. Like, go ahead and add the ingredient. We're not going to add the ingredient until we make sure that what we're passed in is valid. That's the first step, validity check. Then we do what we actually need to do, which is add the ingredient. We add it to slot 1, we add it to slot 2. Good. Okay. So now we can actually go on to, let's see, what do I want to do? Do I want to do attempt compatibility or do I want to do check or check compatibility? I think I want to do next. Even though attempt crafting is right there, I think it's a little simpler if I remember correctly. I'm trying to think, where did I do some of these? Calculate quality here, attempt crafting. I want to save the attempt crafting for just a little bit because it's going to rely on checking the compatibility. So I want to do that first because we have to check the compatibility of things before we attempt crafting them, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on the check compatibility. This is where our game rules about ingredient combination come into play. Remember all those rules we listed in the requirements of program.cs? A lot of these rules are about compatibility, checking compatibility rules. So we have to check all that. So let's go back to the here. And we're going to check compatibility now with those rules in mind. So at the point that we are going to use this, we are going to know because the only thing it's going to call check compatibility, and the reason why it's private is because it's going to be called by this class. Private can be only called by the same class. We're going to call it an attempt crafting. By the time it gets to check compatibility, we're going to know that slot 1 and slot 2 are not null here because this is called after the check. So we're just going to create two variables. First is equal to slot 1. Second is equal to slot 2. Then we have our first rule. Combined potency cannot exceed max potency. Prevents overpowered items. Okay, so if now we have first dot potency plus second dot potency. is greater than max potency, that 10 value, then we can say return false. Now, as I mentioned, we know that these are not null. And the reason why these have yellow squigglies is thinking that this can be possibly null here. When you know absolutely for certain that it cannot possibly be null, you can ignore that check with an exclamation point after the variable name. This cannot possibly be null because we're going to use it in a way that will not allow that. But only do that if you are absolutely certain. So an exclamation point here says ignore the fact that this particular method thinks that it could be null, but it's not right because we already know it can't be elsewhere. We know better than it. Same thing we actually do. Rule 2. Opposing elements require high potency, greater than or equal to 8, to combine, and only master crafters can handle the volatile. We don't actually have crafters, but that's what I said before, so I'm going to say it again, nations. Um, and we should note that spirit has no opposing element and can combine with anything. I will use a traditional if here just because I'm going to show you a variety. So this is the traditional if, what everyone pretty much uses. We're going to have to combine some things though. So we're going to first combine some ands. So first we want to check if first.element is equal to, and we're going to check fire first, element.fire. Did I not use the I think I'll go ahead and use the enum because I actually use it here. You see how it wants me to type enums.element.fire? I don't want to have to type that full namespace out. So I'm just going to go ahead and up here I'll put using magicalcrafting.enums, and that will make it just a little bit shorter on me so I don't have to type that. Instead, I'll just type element.fire. As I said, it's not really a something that helps you with compilation or anything. This is an organization thing. This just lets you type things easier. I could have still done enums.fire and used it just fine, or enums.element.fire. But I just want to type things easier. So, and you can do like system dot collections dot and then lists or a list or whatever, or generic dot list, and that could do it. If you didn't have that in your system, I'm just doing it's not going to work, but you can just give you an example. You can type the full namespace out and still use it. But the using directive says, I want to actually make use of this in a shorter way. And so that's what that does. And that's why it organizes things like that. Okay, so and second dot element is equal to element dot ice, which are the opposing. Okay, that's one possibility. And I want to make sure that we're checking, I want to make sure an order doesn't matter. So both fire and ice and fire should be checked. I'm going to use an or for that. And I'll say, put that in parentheses, and first dot element equals to element dot ice, and second dot element is equal to element dot fire. Okay, so that's another combination we want to check for. Let's make sure, and I don't know if I'm typing vertical staffs correctly. I mean, it looks like a vertical staff on my keyboard, so I'm making sure vertical staff is with or, but I just want to make sure I'm actually typing it there. Yeah, I need to actually put another parenthesis here because it needs open that and close the if. That should be all right. I'm going to have 4, right? So I'm going to need to do 4, and that will probably be all right. So I'm going to put things in there, so I might need that last one, but we'll see. First dot element is equal to element dot earth, and second dot element equals to element dot air. The next one will be first dot element is equal to element dot air, and second dot element is equal to element dot earth. I think I did miss one. There we go. This is why I don't really like that method so much when we're using so many combinations, but this is the very traditional way of doing an if statement. Then we check to see whether or not the potency is greater than or equal to 8 for either of them. So if either of them are less than 8, they cannot be combined. That's the easiest way to say that. If first dot potency is less than 8, or the second potency, two vertical staffs, second dot potency represents an or, is less than 8. I didn't type that one. You wanted to type it for me. Return false. Mean that this particular combination won't work. If they're opposing elements, and one of them happens to have a potency that is less than 8, then they cannot be combined. Fire and ice will have a potency of 3 would be water, basically, is what I'm saying. Not something that can be combined as a magical ingredient. That's one of our rules. Now we have rule 3. Legendary items can't be paired with common items. So we need to check the rarity of both. And I'll do that in the same way I just did the last one. If first dot rarity is equal to rarity dot legendary, and second dot rarity is equal to rarity dot common, I need to check both orders. So I will go ahead and put that in parentheses with an or, and say, I'm going to tie that over just so it can be a little bit over there. There we go. And first dot rarity is equal to rarity dot common. So if any of these happens, second dot rarity is equal to rarity dot legendary. Okay, and if that happens, we I think just return false with our rule. Yeah, so that's an invalid combination. Again, all we're doing is validity checks right now. Right now, we're just saying, okay, are these things compatible? Well, this is a validity check to see whether or not that matches rule 1, saying that we cannot exceed a certain potency. This says that they cannot be opposing and also have one of them with a potency of less than 8. And this says that legendary items cannot be combined with common items. And that was rule 3. Or rule 4 was about the power. Rule 4. Strong potency, 8 to 10, cannot be paired with weak potency, 1 to 3. I'll use, and we'll say it's because as we said before, the energy levels are too discordant, which is exactly how we worded it before, so I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to use a couple, 4 different booleans just to make things simpler for us. So I'll say bool is first strong is equal to first dot potency, which is greater than or equal to 8. That means that it's strong. The first one is strong. Strong. There we go. And bool is first weak is equal to first dot potency less than or equal to 3. And bool is second strong is equal to second dot potency, not deconstruct. But potency is greater than or equal to 8. And then bool is second weak is equal to second dot potency less than or equal to 3. Then we could just use it as with a simple if statement like we did above. If is first strong and is second weak. And we need to combine that with an or circle staff. Let's see, we got those come on. Poof, and poof, and poof. There we go. And is first weak and is second strong, then we return false. That's our main rules. Okay. Now, if we made it past all our validity checks, we made it here, then all compatibility checks pass, which means we can just return true. And that should get rid of the error that we had of it not returning anything. Now, it's still a sort of this grayed out yellow color because it's not being used yet. And that's okay. We wanted to do this before because attempt crafting uses it, and I wanted to have this defined. That's our main rules right there. Let's see, which one do I want to do next? I want to do calculate quality, I think. So let's see. So first we have, like, as I mentioned, I'll just re-explain. First we have the exclamation points that tells the compiler, trust us, these cannot possibly be null. We know they're not because we only call it after we verified those ingredients. Then we check each of our game rules in order. Rule 1, we make sure that the combined potency isn't too high. Rule 2, we check to make sure if they are opposing elements, then make sure that they're powerful enough potent enough to be mixed. We can't mix legendary and common, and we stop people from mixing very strong with very weak ingredients, and those are the game rules. And your game rules will vary, whatever you want to put there for your own variable rules for whatever your game you're creating. Okay, so let's see. What else do we want to do? I think I'll do calculate quality next. Since I believe after we attempt crafting, we also have to calculate what quality of thing we crafted. So I'll go ahead and do that since attempt crafting is going to depend on that. And I do this by dependencies. I make sure that the thing that's at the top, the attempt crafting, which requires us to create the other things are already defined, so we're not going to have as many errors. All right, so I am going to first start with var first equals to slot 1, just like I did before. Var second is equal to slot 2, and we're going to go ahead and put the exclamation points because we're going to have some things that think it's null. So calculate the base quality. I went through detail of how to do that. Potency 1 plus potency 2 over 2 times max potency. That's basically the simple formula. And I've already shown you the scale, so I'm not going to go over it again. That's already in our program.cs. Decimal base quality is equal to first dot potency plus second dot potency over 2.0 m to be a decimal. You have to have that for decimals. This thinks it's a double. It already gives you an error, right? Now, that gives you an error before we ever even get to the semicolon. If I try to put like a semicolon right here, it's saying, I can't do that because it thinks this number is a double by default. This says decimal. This says float, decimal. You can also do this. But most of the often it's lowercase that's used. But you can use either upper or lower. Okay. Times max potency. And let's see, what else do we need? So that is our base. Now we need to add the bonuses. Add rarity of bonuses using, and this time we'll use switch expressions. Expression pattern matching. We're going to do some interesting things here. And for that, I will do decimal and calculate a rarity bonus is equal to, and I'm going to use a tuple here, which combines multiple variables together. So what I'm going to do to switch on is setting rarity bonus equal to first dot rarity, second dot rarity. On these, I'm going to do a switch. And if we can do this, yes. Now I actually have to put some things in the switch, and at the end I have to put something, because right now it's like, hey, you don't have anything here, which is why it has the yellow exclamation point. There it squiggly says. All right, so rarity dot legendary, rarity dot legendary, because right now the switch is on the first and the second is going to return. So if you remember our from our program, just to show you what we're doing right here. From our rarity rules, we have 0.5 for 2 legendary, 0.3 from 1 legendary, 0.2 for too rare. And if you have the same rarity, which is going to look interesting, and I'll show you how that works, is 0.1. So that's what we're doing right now. We're giving a bonus of 0.5, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. And going back to the crafting table. All right, so the arrow here returns. And let's see if I got this. Where am I at? Yes, I think this will be all right. 0.5 M. That's what was returning. Now let me just tab over this a little bit. Perfect magical harmony. Okay, and I can't put like a I put a semicolon there. I have to put more, there are more options. To do cases with a switch expression, you use comma. Then a rarity dot legendary, and we've already said that one legendary will give us a 0.3. So we need some way of saying that the other thing can be anything else. We have a wildcard for that called underscore. That says this represents anything. So it could be any rarity. Rarity dot, or I need or a rarity. Sorry, I'm doing it in any order. Either the first one's legendary and the second one's anything, or the second one's anything and the or the second. All right, let me say it one more time. Either the first one is legendary and the second one is anything, or the first one is anything and the second one is legendary. There we go. I slow down a bit on my speech. Then we return, which is what the arrow does, 3M. We have, and I'll have that over a little bit. I like to line these a little bit up. That will be one legendary. And put a comma, and put a comma. There we go. And then we have the two rare. And so that is just rarity dot rare and rarity dot rare. They both have to be rare. That will give us a result of 0.2 M. And that is a good magical resonance. And then we have one final one, which is a match of when they are any type that matches. So if it's fire and fire, I believe, or actually if it's any legend, if it's legendary, legendary, rare, rare, common and common, or uncommon and common, then we give a slight bonus for that when they match. It's not much of a bonus, but a slight bonus. To do that, we have to create some temporary variables, and I'll show you how. So this will create a temporary variable, and we're going to create it as a tuple because we need the two rarities. Now let's call it rarity 1, rarity 2. You can call it anything you want. So this is create the variables, temporary variables, rarity 1, rarity 2, which is a tuple. When R1 is equal to R2, return 0.1M. And then I'll go over here and make the note of matching rarities. So here we've said that, okay, if they're both legendary, return 0.5. If the first one is legendary or the second one is legendary, return 0.3. If they're both rare, return 0.2. And if they happen to match, but aren't, both rare, then return 0.1. If we put that line above the rarity, they would check that first. So this will be if it's common, common, uncommon, uncommon, and that's it because they can't do legendary, legendary either. So common, common, uncommon, uncommon. Those are the only two things it matches. But this will create temporary variables to check this condition if the rarities match. That's all it does. But we have one last one, which is the default that we need to pass in. And that is not really going to do much of anything for us, I think. We're going to give no rarity bonus otherwise. Basically, if it doesn't match any of these rules, which common and uncommon doesn't match, common and rare doesn't match, those things don't match. So if it doesn't match any of the rules that we have, we don't return any bonus. No rarity bonus. Okay. Then we're going to cap the final result, which is the adding the base quality and rarity bonus, to 1. That's going to be our maximum. So to do that, we just use the math class, which has a lot of features. If you ever look in the math class, there's you can do pretty much any mathematical equation there is just about. So it has a lot of things. And for this, we're just going to use the minimum of base quality plus rarity bonus and 1.0 m, which means that if this exceeds 1.0, return that one because it's less than that. So this will cap it at 1.0. And there we go. So first we calculate our base quality using the equation we do. The m means decimal after the 2.0. We use decimals instead of regular floating points because we want exact precision when dealing with currency, or in this case, quality values. It's maybe a little bit overkill for our example, but yeah, might as well use the most accurate one. Then we use a switch expression to figure out the rarity bonus and see how that looks compared to a bunch of if statements. This is once you actually learn how this how the formatting works, it's actually a pretty nice little concise way of doing things. It is hard to read at first, though. If you've never seen this before, you might wonder why the switch is afterwards. And it's because this is a switch expression, so it comes after what you're checking. And this is going to return a value. And so this actually returns 0.0 or 0.1 based on what the arrow does. And this gives you your rules. And we did a slightly more complex one because we used tuples here. You can always do a single expression instead. So, and that gets returned to rarity bonus. So whatever this is, that's what the switch is on. And whatever result is from the arrow, that gets put into rarity bonus. And then finally, we add them up and make sure it caps at 1.0. That's how we check the quality. So next, we'll implement the attempt crafting, which sort of brings everything we've been doing together, which is up here. And this method checks if we have ingredients, makes sure that they're compatible, calculates the quality, and determines the final result. Okay, so first of all, we need to check if both slots have ingredients, and we might as well do that using pattern matching. You could do it this one that's not as nice as the other pattern matching because we do have to still check two things instead of one, and slots. Okay, if slot 1 is not, and we have to create a variable from it, ingredient first, and we'll do or slot 2 is not ingredient second, then we will return a crafting result because that's what it's expecting. A crafting result, if you remember, was our record. This is the first time we're actually using the record. So if you notice here that this looks a little different than what you're used to. The traditional way would actually be a little bit long for everything that's going to do, because it doesn't just do a null check, which would be like if slot 1 is not equal to null, or actually this is the if either one is null, or slot 2 is equal to null. You could say it looks it's similar to that, but this does something else. And this, what it does is it creates a variable to store the result if it's not null. So slot 2 or slot 1 is actually going to be stored in first, and slot 2 will be stored in second if they happen to not be null. That actually prevents us from messing up slot 1 and slot 2 later on, if we ever messed up those slot 1 and slot 2, because slot 1 and slot 2 are kind of exposed to the entire class. So we may want to make sure that we don't mess with those original values in case they're being used somewhere else at some point, like it's used here and other places. So it might be good to have a copy of them. And that's what we'd be working with, is a copy of slot 1 and a copy of slot 2. So whenever this does this, it's doing more than this. It's also creating the first and second variables, which will store the non-null result. But if it happens to be null, then we actually need to say return new crafting result and give us an error. I'll go ahead and put this on multiple lines. This, and that's not what I want to return, but I will say failed craft. Okay, and then the quality is 0. Success is false. And then the error message we'll give is both slots must contain ingredients. All right, and go. And again, you could put it on one line if you want, but I like to have it a little bit spread out. In fact, sometimes I like to do it like that just to show, tab it over just a bit, and there we go. That way I can see what's being filled in. And I can, if I ever need to look at my record, then I can check it. Okay, so that's one way. Now we can also, we now know that they contain ingredients. Both, at this point, we now know that they are not null. That's what we told the other methods is they are not null, and that's true now. We've made that true. So now we need to check if the ingredients can actually work together, meaning if they're compatible. If not, check compatibility, meaning that if the check compatibility returns false, we're also going to say there's going to be an error. I'm going to copy and paste this and give a different message. Copy, paste. This is another failed craft, but this time it's a failed craft because these ingredients are not compatible. There we go. Now, we need to, after that, since we now know they are compatible, they contain ingredients, both slots, and they're compatible. So we can try to attempt the craft, but we need to calculate the quality and determine the tier name. So first we'll have decimal quality is equal to calculate quality. If I can type calculate quality, and that's just that. So that should be fine. I need to put an I on this quality. There we go. And then string quality tier. And we're going to use a switch expression to set this as well. Equal quality switch. Okay, and put a semicolon at the end of your expression. And for this, I will say if it's less than or equal to 0.3 m, if you remember it was 0.3, I'll look at our table. 0.3 is poor, 0.6 average, 0.8 good, 0.9 excellent, and anything greater is masterwork. That's what we're doing right now. Okay, so 0.3 m, return poor. Then they put a comma. It's less than or equal to 0.6 m, return, that's what the arrow does there, average. If it's less than or equal to 0.8 m, then return good. If it's less than or equal to 0.9 m, then return excellent. And if it's anything else, if it's greater than 0.9, then return masterwork. All right, so that's our quality tier. We actually tell you to use those things. So first, we'll determine what type of item we've created based on ingredient types. Order doesn't matter. Either ingredient can be first. I mentioned that because you could have a different game where order does matter. If you put an herb and I don't know, essence together, it might matter for your game if you put the herb with the essence versus the essence with the herb. But for me, it doesn't. So I'm just using that to let you know that it doesn't matter. And we'll use another switch expression string result type is equal to, and we'll use a tuple first dot type, second dot type, and we're going to check the result of this this tuple. Switch semicolon to set result type, and we'll say ingredient type dot crystal, ingredient type dot herb, or ingredient type dot herb, ingredient type dot crystal. Because like I said, order doesn't matter. Then return potion. So if it's a crystal mixed with an herb in any order, if it's the first one, it's the first slot is crystal, the first slot is herb, doesn't matter. Return a potion. That's part of the rules. Then we need to look at metal dot metal ingredient type dot crystal, or, and again, order doesn't matter. That's all we're doing. Ingredient type dot crystal, ingredient type dot metal. Then we return amulet. Okay, and now we need herb and essence. Ingredient type dot herb, ingredient type dot essence, or ingredient type dot essence, ingredient type dot herb, return, and I believe that is elixir. Yes. And otherwise, we just return a generic mixture is what we said we do. Any other combination becomes a basic mixture. Now, obviously, we're going to have some that will turn to basic mixtures. We didn't mix all of our types. We have nothing with crystal and essence, for instance, should return basic mixture. And that's a good way to check too. If you don't define everything, it's a good way to check whether the things that you haven't defined actually work and return a mixture. And that should be a good check. Okay, but you can always define and say, hey, I want more things. You can always add to your ingredient type list. You can add to this result type list, and then I might even put it in a different class or something so that we make sure that this doesn't get longer and longer and longer. But for now, this is fine. So now we need to check for special effects. Remember, we do have those. Check for special element effects. String special effect is equal to first dot element and second dot element switch. Hopefully you're starting to get a little bit more used to seeing this now. But we are going to do, as I mentioned in the rules, some interesting and special effects. The special effects are the same elements resonating power. Um, if you remember what same means, that means that we can check with temporary variables. It's the easiest way of saying that. So var e1, element 1, e2, when they're equal, e1 equals to e2, return resonating power. That's the first rule that we have there. And if you look at, yes, if you look at E1, it will already show you that it becomes an element. So it's not just any type here. It's actually becoming an element when you define it like this, because it knows this is a first element, second element that you're creating based on this. So it's kind of nice that it's smart enough to understand to decompose into an element. The next rule was something about fire and ice. Then we have earth and air. So we'll do fire and ice and then earth and air. So earth dot, or element, sorry, element dot earth, element dot air, and order doesn't matter, or element dot air, element dot earth. We return, and it was for earth and air, we return dusty whirl wind. Let's see. What else do I have on the rules? I just want to check them. I do have fire and ice. I need to do that before the earth and air. I'll go ahead and do fire and ice then. Right here. So, right after that one, I'll go ahead and do this element dot fire, element fire. I'm trying to save myself typing anything. Dot ice, or element dot ice, element dot fire, then a return, and that was what was the name that was again? That was called thermal shock. Probably should have done something with lightning, but thermal shock. There we go. Okay, so now we have that. And the next one up is going to be any spirit becomes spiritual infusion. Should that last or no? I'll do it now. So any spirit will become spiritual infusion. So we need to do either the first one becomes spirit or the second one becomes spirit. So element dot spirit and wildcard to match any of them, or the wildcard first, element dot spirit, then return spiritual infusion. Okay. The next rule I think had to do something to do with being concentrated or something. I don't remember. Was it when they're equal, right? I guess I put any rule for when they're equal actually. I thought I had a rule. I'm going to add a rule for when they're equal. Um, when the elements are equal, I'm going to return a concentration or concentrated. That'd be the magical effect. Burning, I don't know if I have a lot. This would be fine. Which basically means we'll say double the whatever the element is, elemental component. Not that I'm actually doing any doubling or anything like that, but just to say what that means. All right, so I will go ahead and make that next when they're equal. We can go ahead and do it here. Var E1, all right, I actually did that already. Yeah, I already did that. I just did it as resonating power first. I'm done. I already did that. Let's see. I don't remember if that. Yeah, I already did that. I just didn't notice that I did that. Okay, then we'll just keep going. I have to remember sometimes when I do things, rules that I make. Okay, so we'll continue on then. Yeah, so element dot fire. When they're anything like this, when first dot potency is greater than second dot potency, then we return burning. Hopefully that's what I was trying to do. And then same with ice. We did element dot ice with anything when first dot potency is greater than second dot potency, we return ice. I probably should do this for our freezing. I probably should do either that one, or I can do it this way, elements dot fire. No, I think I was very specific that when the first ingredient here, now normally it doesn't matter, but I think when the first ingredient is fire, I want to say that's a fire dominant ingredient was what I was trying to say with this. So this is a dominant fire. Dominant ice. That means the first ingredient does have an impact in this one case. Just because I made it as part of the rules, you don't have to have it that way. I could even get rid of that, but I just wanted to do some different rules to make sure I check things. So sometimes I made some rules that may not have made the most sense, but they're just sort of game rules. Doesn't matter too much. Just practice. But the last one is let's see. I think the only thing we haven't done. Have we done anything? What have we not done? The spirit is secondary. So any spirit is spiritual infusion. That doesn't make sense. So if we do it secondary, so if any spirit is spiritual infusion, then we don't really do ethereal because that's any spirit. That's not even going to make sense as a rule. So we'll just have that be any spirit because that wouldn't pass. And so we'll just do that. Sometimes you have to check your rules to make sure they actually make sense and do no special effect otherwise. All right. Fire dominant, ice dominant. If spirit is a part of it, then it will be a spiritual infusion. If earth is with air, dusty whirlwind, and if fire is with ice, thermal shock, and if the two happen to be equal, so even if it was spirit and spirit, it would be resonating power. And if it's fire, fire, it wouldn't be burning. it would be resonating power. That takes place. So you actually have to look at the priority of your rules too, because if we wanted to say the fire dominance takes precedence, then we would have to move this rule down because it gets checked first. Then it goes onto that one. Then it goes onto that one. Then it goes onto that one. So you have to make sure that when you put these rules down of your game or whatever you're working on, that you have them in an order that makes sense. That's why we kind of did with the numbers, where it was a little easier to tell where we did point 0.3, point 0.6, point 0.8, point 0.9. If we'd done that in a different order, then the other would have been checked first. This would not work out too well if we reverse the order or if we switched one of these up. So we have to make sure that the order does matter when we do these things. Here, the fire dominance was less of a priority for me, especially since I don't really care too much about order in general in this game. So this is the only time I'm doing it. It's really far down. Okay, that should be enough for the special effect. So first we check to see if we have ingredients in both slots, which is way up here. We need to actually return something, by the way. We're going to return a crafting result that actually works, but I'm just going to go over what we've done. Then we check to see if they can work together. Then we get the quality of it. Then we get the result type of basically mixing the crystal with herb and that sort of thing, the type of ingredient to find out whether it's a potion, an amulet, elixir, or mixture. And then we get any special effects. Now we actually have to put in the crafting result. So let's return new crafting result. I might just copy and paste and just say that we don't have a failed craft anymore. I'll just copy and paste that. Now it actually succeeds. And I'll untab that just a bit. Okay, so now we actually have some name that we can give it. I'm going to use a string interpolation, which will let me do variables within quotes. Quality tier, so that we can show it saying the quality first, which is up here. So it will say excellent will be the first word in our item name. And then we'll say result type. And in result type, we will have it say, so we made an excellent potion or an excellent elixir, an excellent amulet. We are going to have not zero quality, but quality. Not false, but this time it actually worked. And the special effect is going to be our message. So that would be saying in Spiritual Infusion, that sort of thing, or Dusty Whirlwind, or whatever. Okay, and that should return our results. So I think that won't have any errors anymore. Then we just have to go back to our recipe manager and fix those errors. But we have done everything with the crafting table. So now we need to put together our crafting table. And I have to go and find where I even put that stuff. Crafting table, which has a recipe manager. Sorry, recipe manager. Where you just did crafting table. Let's see. Recipe manager has or is valid combination and determine result. Did I even use that again? You know, I might have actually gotten rid of this manager. I'm trying to think because I kind of just like did that. Yeah, I think I got rid of the manager. I think that's why I'm missing it. It's because I when I redid some of the code, I'd done this code earlier for the course, but I like to redo things, and I think I got rid of that entirely. Is why I'm missing it. Yeah, I think so. All right, well, I don't have this anymore, so I will get rid of it. I'll just delete the file and delete it from the UML, of course, because I don't have a recipe manager from what I can tell anymore. I don't need it anymore because everything's taken care of by the crafting table. Everything is the quality is taken care of, the attempted craft. We don't need the is valid combination because we already checked to see if there's a compatibility. So that, yeah, we no longer have that. That's what happened is I got rid of it. That's wondering what's been. So let's go back to Mermaid and get rid of that table altogether. That would be the recipe manager. We don't have that anymore. There we go. I get Control S every time. All right, so yeah, because we did everything in crafting table. Yeah, no reason to push it out there. I guess because the class was kind of long on this one, I may have had it in put some of the stuff over into a manager, but meh. This is fine. All right, so we'll go to program and actually put every freaking thing together. because now we need to actually write our program. And so for our program class, what we need to do, we need a user interface for one. So let's see about doing that. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go first with this? I think I'll create the user interface first. Yeah, yeah, I think so. So let's have actually people use our crafting system. Namespace, and this is in our root folder, so we just have to put in the magical crafting. But it's going to use some of our things. It's probably going to use all of our things. Dot core and magical crafting dot enums and magical crafting dot records. And if it doesn't use something, you can always look later and say, oh, well, that wasn't used, and then we can get rid of it. But I'm pretty sure I actually do. So public static class program, and then we'll have a main method as well. We keep one crafting table for the entire program. I could have made that static. Um, in fact, why didn't I make that? That's fine. We'll make it static here as a variable. Because static means this crafting table is shared by all code in the program. And we're going to make it read-only. Read-only means we can only set it all once when we create it. What we're going to have here is a private static read-only crafting table. And we're going to call this crafting table equals, and we're going to just set to a new crafting table. Okay, then public static void main. This is our main entry point of our program. I'm going to have a welcome message, console.writeLine, which will write to the terminal, and say, welcome to the magical crafting system. And since we've done so much, I'm going to go ahead and clear this and do a .NET run just to make sure that it actually is going to say welcome to the magical crafting system, which I'm hoping it does. Yeah, okay, good. We are ready to actually do things then. Okay, so keep running the program until the user chooses to exit. To do that, we'll just have a while true. But whenever we do a while true, that means that this is an infinite loop right here. If I ran this program right now, it would never end. So whenever you do that, make sure that you have an exit condition taken care of. And I'll make sure I'll do that. So I'm going to do console.write line. Just going to do an empty one to start with, just to put some space in between things, and then console.write line. I might show you, maybe I'll show you a little bit of how to format this slightly differently, actually. All right, so let's see. We can actually do a multi-line statement. I could get rid of that. Um, in some languages, this is called a here doc syntax, and this is kind of what C# is doing, but it does it slightly different than here doc. Here doc requires it to be at the very beginning of the line, but basically this just lets you do any sort of special symbols or anything like that. And you can do this on multi-line, and it'll print just like you actually have it, including the indentations. And since I tabbed, it'll include the tabs instead of spaces. So if I want spaces, I need the space over all that. For now, I'll just do that. So I will do one add ingredient to slot one, and I will go ahead and put this blank line in between things. And two add ingredient to slot two, three add no, temp crafting. It's not slot three. Temp crafting. Four, clear crafting table. Five, exit. By the way, unlike here doc syntax, you can also put multiple of these. Like you can put more quotes as long as they match the number at the end, in case you need to have a triple quote somewhere. I've never had that situation come up, but if you ever need one, then you can put a triple quote in here and it won't mess up things as long as you have more of those, if you have 4 or 5 or whatever you want. So that's our menu. Okay, I'm going to convert the string that we get in to an integer value. And I'll show you how to do that. So try parse is how you do that. Try parse attempts to convert the user's input to a number. If it succeeds, the number is goes into a variable called choice, and the method returns true. If it fails, like someone types blue, it returns false, and that variable set, and choice does not get set. And here's the format for that. So I'm going to do if not int dot try parse, meaning try to convert a string to a number. And the string I want to convert is console.readline. And that I want to say, okay, well, if it succeeds, I need somewhere to put that. And I want to put it into choice. All right, so this says if it fails, because I put that not there to reverse it. This says if it succeeds, and I have to say choice. If it succeeds, do this. But I want to ask it to fail so we can get this out of our program currently and just say console.writeLine. Please enter a number between 1 and 5. And we'll do continue to continue the next iteration of the loop to go here. So they have to enter a number at this point. And so that means that when we get here, we know that they have entered a number between 1 and 5. If I'd done this, I would have had to check that with an else and put everything indented. And so I don't want that indentation. So I'm just going to go on and know that by the time I'm here, that we have a valid choice. Now we need to actually handle the user's choice. Do something with it. In other words, now we know they actually have a choice that's been converted to an integer. We'll do a switch, a very basic switch, not even a switch expression. Switch choice, the very, very basics of switches. Case 1 and case 2 are going to do the same thing because if you add an ingredient to slot 1 or slot 2, it calls the same method. So we'll do case 1, and if you want to do the same thing for case 2, you do this right afterwards. And we'll say both 1 and 2 do the same thing, just with different slots. We add ingredients, choice, and then we break. There we go. Is that ingredient? Is that not what I called that? Is that not what the name of the crafting tables? Add ingredient. That was add ingredient. Crafting, add ingredient, public. It's public. Just copy and paste that. Just make sure I've done this all right. What's that? That's weird. Okay, so that's a little strange to me. It's probably because I made it private, static, and read-only. Let me try without the private, static, read-only part. Yeah, no, you don't like that either. Okay, so you can't declare instance member inside there. I know that too. I do have to make it static, actually, because you cannot do a non-static inside of a static. Everything I create inside this has to be static, but what's wrong with add ingredient? What have I done wrong here? Should be able to add ingredient. Where is that? I'm in the core. I'm using core, that's here. Crafting table, probably crafting table dot, no? Did not have any access to anything. or read-only. Read-only doesn't matter right now. I'm just trying to get access to things. Let's see. Crafting table dot. There we go. Yeah, I was thinking called crafting table dot attempt add ingredient because that's what actually has the method add ingredient, of course. Dot add ingredient. That's what I've done. Now, what is wrong with it this time? Um, we need to put it not just choice, but we also need to actually give it an ingredient, right? Let's see. Um, let's see. What's that ingredient actually do? Let me check and see how this actually works. Ingredient. We actually never pull in an ingredient for this. We need to create an ingredient somewhere. We should probably do that. I never actually created the ingredient when I did this. I think it's what I did. But we need to create one. Let's see. Where do I want to do that? I think what I'll do is have a wrapper method. Instead of using this add ingredient, I'll have a wrapper method inside of our program.cs. That'll be a little easier. So I'm going to go outside here and create something that will add an ingredient here. So I'll do private static add ingredient and just do it based on the slot, int slot. And that way I can just create the ingredient here. Did I do it out of too far? And yes, I did. Is that should be fine. That should be fine, I think. Yeah, it just has to, we have to have a return type void. Okay, I'll create the ingredient here. Console dot write line. I'm going to give them another menu is why I'm doing this. Let's say blank line, and this time I'll only do one line dot write line enter because I have to give us information about the ingredient, right? So the reason this isn't working right now is that this requires both an ingredient and a choice, but we have not created that ingredient yet. And so to create an ingredient, which is here, we need to give a name, an element, a potency, a type, and a rarity, which means we have to ask the user for all that information. So let's go ahead and ask the user for that information. So I'll do that this way. Let's see, enter ingredient name first. And semicolon. Let's see. So we will get the ingredient name, but we'll use a mystery item if they don't enter anything, if they just press enter. That'd be a default, in other words. Console.write, and I'll do int. I just already did that. I already did ingredient name. Let's do it. There we go. All right. So what else do I need to ask? String name equals console dot readline. And here, readline can return null. And we want something to happen whenever we return null. We want to return the word mystery item if they just press enter. If they just press enter, this becomes null. So we're going to do mystery item. I'm going to talk about this question. This is called the null coalescing operator. And it's a way of saying if something happens to be null on the left, return whatever's on the right. That's all it is. It's just a simple syntax of saying, okay, if console.readline equal null, then name equals mystery item. That's the same thing. It's just this is quicker. So I like to do things nice and concisely. Now we need the elements selection. And since there are different types, I'll use the same here doc syntax I use up there. It's not called here doc in C sharp, but I forget what they call it in C sharp. So I've been used to that in different languages called here doc, but it's here doc light. Okay, so we'll have 1B, and that's like, I'm just going to clear these off. Fire, ice, ice, earth, air, and spirit. Okay, and that should give enough room. And then convert user's numeric choice to an element. if they enter something invalid, right, then default to spirit. You can default to what you want. That's what I'm defaulting to. Elements, elements equal console dot read line. I'll do a switch here. This is going to be a switch expression. Since I don't need to convert this to a integer, I'm just going to use it as is. One being return elements dot fire, then two being return elements dot ice, three being return elements dot earth, four return elements dot air, five return elements dot spirit, and then something for the default comma elements dot spirit. That's what I said my default was going to be. All right, so that should be okay. I would say this is default case in case people are not used to seeing the switch expression because default is the way you do that for regular switches. Anything else becomes spirit. Okay, so that's the element and the name. We also have to ask for the potency, the type, and the rarity. So we have a few more things to ask for. So get potency value and ensure that it's between 1 and 10, which is, the max potency is 10, our minimum is 1. Console.writeLine, separate this out a bit, console.writeLine. That just prints a blank line if you're wondering. And enter potency 1 to 10. All right. And then I will do another try parse for this because I need to convert the string that they actually enter into an integer. If not, int.try parse and console.readline is what I'm going to read in, then out int, and we will do potency. So remember, potency doesn't get set if it actually is not able to be converted to a number. And we'll say instead of returning or anything, we actually want to set some default value because it would be really a lot if we want to check every one of these and then say, okay, we'll go back one step. All right, we'll go back one step. No, we're just going to say potency equal 1 by default if they don't enter anything that's valid. You can do that though. I mean, it's certainly a way to create a user interface that works fine. We're going to do a math dot clamp this time to ensure that the value stays between 1 and 10. So instead of saying, okay, we're going to check to see if this is greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 10, we're just going to clamp it to 10 if they put like 100 in there. Potency is equal to math.clamp. And potency is what we're clamping, and we're clamping it between 1 and 10. So if they enter like a negative number, it'll become 1. If they enter in a number greater than 10, it'll become 10. And you can do that in other ways, of course. Ingredient type selection. That's the next part. So let's see. We now have let's check again, ingredients here. Name, element, potency. We need type and rarity left. All right. So for the type selection, I'll do another one of these here doc things. Again, not really called that. I forget what it's called that one. So I need to sometimes type correctly. I catch myself eventually. Sometimes. All right. So for the select ingredient types, what we'll do first, console right line. And I will do select ingredient type. And it's obviously not going to be fire, ice, earth, air, spirit, and it's even not going to be 1 through 5. There's only 4 types of defined. This time it will be crystal, herb, um, metal, and essence. Good. Okay. Convert the user's numeric choice to an ingredient type. Okay. Default, and I'll default to crystal this time. Input is invalid. Ingredient type is what we're returning, and we'll call this type equal console dot readline. We're doing a switch on the read line, and we're doing a switch expression. And we'll say that 1 returns ingredient type dot crystal. 2 returns ingredient type dot herb. 3 returns ingredient type dot metal. And 4 returns ingredient type dot essence. All right, and then we need something for a default. And obviously we need to put a semicolon at the end of that. Let's put a default, and we said we were going to default to crystal. Right, semicolon, I always want semicolons. Okay, that was the type of the ingredient type. The last thing is the rarity. So we will do a rarity selection next. Very similar to what we just did, honestly, is we just have to change ingredient types to rarity, things like that. So I'm just going to type real quick on this. How to do it. Default to common if input is invalid. Rarity selection. Let's see. Um, we will do console.writeLine. Select rarity. And then again, I'll copy this. So there's 4 of those. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary. Okay. And we will convert that again, convert user's numeric choice to a rarity. Default common if it's not, if it's invalid, it's a rarity. Rarity is equal to, and we'll do just a switch expression on it. Console dot readline switch semicolon at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to default to common. And let's say common, not dots, uncommon, rare, legendary. Do something wrong with it. It's like broke everything. Let's see. What did I do? It's great. It worked until I put that comment. Let's see. 1 returns. Let's see. Make sure I did that. I'm doing something weird. Oh yeah, because I can't just. It's not a string. Of course, it's not a string. I wish I. I'm dumb. Rarity. It's not common. It's not a string. We have an enum for this thing. Uncommon. Rarity. Getting so tired of typing. It's a lot of things that's been typing. Rarity dot legendary, and then rarity dot, of course, simple little thing. All right, now that we have all the information, we can actually create the ingredient with all the properties we've gathered. This is the simple thing. Var ingredient is equal to new ingredient, and that is just going to be name and element and potency and type and rarity. Remember it said record. Um, Try to add it to the crafting table and let the user know if it worked. If crafting table dot add ingredient, now we can use that. We have the ingredient now. And we passed in the slot to this method. Then console dot write line. I'm just gonna put blank line. Let's sometimes put blank lines in front of things. Console dot write line and successfully using string interpolation, putting $sign added name to slot. String interpolation with the $sign, if you're unfamiliar, it lets us put variables inside every time we have a brace. And it uses less memory than the plus sign for adding strings together, because adding strings together, strings are immutable in most languages, including C#. So if you add strings together, you create a new string every time you do string A plus string B, etc. If you add A plus B plus C plus D plus E, then you're getting a string every single time you do that. So I use string interpolation where I can. It's efficient and looks nice. Else I need, well, that's enough on that. um, else. I should go ahead and put this outside of this if, because I'm going to use that for both. Console dot write line. And then we can just say failed to add ingredient. That's a very ingredient. Please try again. Okay, that's good for that. I'm also going to wrap attempt crafting, which is going to be our next option. But I need to get up here. Now we don't do this. We just do that. But our next option is attempt crafting, which is 3. Phase 3, I'm going to break just because. I'm going back up to my cases. I haven't seen those in a little bit. Yeah, and then I'll just go ahead because we have a case 4 and a case 5. I'm just going to put those here. And case 5. But for case 5, since it's the one that actually handles our exit, we are going to go ahead and say console.writeLine and take care of this one. Thank you for using the magical crafting system. And we are going to return. We'll need the break because we're going to return. But we'll have a default for any other value. Handle any other number the user might enter. Console.writeLine. Invalid choice. Please enter a number between 1 and 5. Okay, so that will continue. Now you could have exited out of the while, but yeah, I'm going to just return from the method of main, so that's fine. This will be good. If I did that, I would need like a Boolean instead of true. So I'm just going to use this return. But 3 and 4 need to be created. I will go ahead for 4. I can go ahead and use that. I can just clear it. I can just do that easily without having to have any extra methods. We just create a new one. That's how you clear it. So all you have to do for 4 is say underscore crafting table is equal to new crafting table. Just new, I think it'd be enough. Do I need to say crafting table? might not be able to do read only if I can't. Let's see if I can do it without read only. Does it let me? Yeah, I can't do read only because I'm changing it after it's created, so I won't do a read only one. I'll just do a regular one. Read only means you can't change it after it's been created, but we gave the option to clear the crafting table so that it no longer has the ingredients in the slot. It was easier to do that than say try to remove the ingredient from slot 1, remove ingredient from slot 2. So we cleared the crafting table altogether and just say, okay, start over. All right, so that was the easy way of doing that. Now, this I will need a wrapper for actually attempting to craft, I believe. If I remember correctly, yes, because this accepts in an ingredient and the slot for an add ingredient, but in temp crafting, I need something in both slots, I think. I'll check and see. What do I want to do with, what do I have to do? Anything crazy with, just checking to see if there's anything crazy that I need to do with attempt crafting. Mainly, I want to say what the result is. That's the main thing, because when we attempt crafting up here, wherever that went, attempt crafting, we get a crafting result out, and we want to print out that crafting result. So I'm going to wrap that in a method that will just print out the crafting result. It'll be a very simple method in comparison to the other. However, we'll still have to do the attempt crafting, but it's not going to be difficult. We can do that. Okay, so I'm going to back to here, and I will create a wrapper for, I'm just going to minimize this, by the way. Yeah, add ingredients, fine. Can we do that without? Yeah, I do think so. I have to go to here. Let's do that. Okay, so I will create a wrapper, private static void attempt crafting. And here I will try to craft with whatever ingredients are in the slots. When we attempt crafting, we're going to assume that there's stuff in the slots, but we do that validation check already, so we don't have to worry about it because we'll get some result out. It may be a failed result, but we already have that taken care of. Crafting table dot attempt crafting. Not add ingredient, thank you. Attempt crafting. Then we show the results. Show the results in a formatted way. I can do our here doc syntax as well there. I don't remember if I can do it. Can I do a here doc with a expression by member? I'm not sure if that will work. I've never tried that one. I'll try it. Something new. If it doesn't work, then I'll do the old-fashioned way. This. All right, I'm going to put dollar signs to see if I can do this. Yes, you can. Okay. Wasn't sure. Crafting results. And I will do item result dot item name. And I will do for the next line quality result dot quality. And the next line will be success result dot success. And the next one, I want to format the, can I format this? I'm not gonna be able to format. Yeah, I should be able to format. Okay. I'm going to format that as a percentage for the quality. Instead of being 0 to 1, I would like to see it as a percentage. So that's what I can't do a I can't do a comment there because then it would put it as a part of the string. But E0 will format it as a percentage. And that's what I want to do. And let's see, special effect. And result dot message is our special effect. Okay, and I don't need this anymore. That should be good. Now it might print way far over there. I might want to do like that or something, but just in case, I'll do this. All right, now we actually have to call that method, and that's going to be back up here in our options and right here. Attempt crafting. Okay. Let's see if I have anything else I need. I don't think I did. So Our program creates a crafting table that sort of persists throughout the entire program, entire session. Then it shows a menu with 5 options. Add an ingredient to slot 1, add an ingredient to slot 2, attempt crafting, um, clear the crafting table, or exit the program. When someone adds an ingredient, when they do 1 or 2, then we call add ingredient and we walk them through crafting an ingredient step by step. Enter the ingredient name, enter the potency, enter the ingredient type, enter the rarity. And then yeah, I think I may have missed one, but but enter all the information nonetheless. Yeah, enter the element, that's what I missed. And yes, did I say the enter the? I may not have said enter the element. Let me just go ahead and say console dot right line enter element. There we go. For some reason I'm putting one that now go ahead. I think there's enough space with that. Ingredient name. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, it's just I didn't say that. And I should say it before I print the actual elements out. And I don't even have to do that. I can say enter element and see what that looks like anyway. But I will put a blank line before that. Sorry, there we go. Okay, enter element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There, that should be decent. Just making sure that we did everything correctly. I could have done this, and I might just do that because I want to. Since I did it this way, I wasn't planning on doing that syntax originally, so I'll do it now. But since I am doing that syntax, I can get rid of this. Just do one statement. A little cleaner, you know? I like to make things a little cleaner if I can. Okay, so we walked them through adding everything with the number 3. All we do for number 4 is we clear everything out by saying, okay, all the stuff that was in there is crap now. We create a brand new crafting table, which clears everything and disposes the old one by garbage disposal on its own. For option 5, that's when they said they want to exit. So we just say, okay, thank you for using this. Return out of main, exit the program. And otherwise, we say, okay, you had an invalid choice, continue on and try the other invalid choice. And yeah, so that's what we do. Um, yeah, and I think we've looked at everything in detail at this point. So I think the only thing is to actually try this thing out. So let me see if I have any good things. So did that. I want to see. I think I created some decent ones to try it out. Okay, so let's try to run it first. Clear. I just well, let's see what happens. So this is the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and extend out the terminal if I can. This is what I say about my mouse. Dragging is not the best of things for it. Okay. So let's attempt crafting. Failed craft, 0% quality, failure. Both slots must contain ingredients. That's what I hope to see. 4 shouldn't really do anything. There's nothing in there. Let's do add ingredient to slot 1. It honestly doesn't matter which order, so I'm probably not going to test that. But let us uh, enter the ingredient name. So I'm going to say Ruby Fire Crystal is the name of this thing. Select the element 1, and as I said, the tabs are also saved. So if you want to untab things and reformat how they're printed, you can. But I'll pick 1 for fire. Potency, I want 9. Ingredient type, it's a crystal, so I'm going to put 1. And let's say it's legendary crystal. Okay. Um, so let's try the crafting again. Nope, both of them don't contain, so yeah. Right, so we still need to add an ingredient to slot 2. So let's try, what do we want? Let's see. Did a crystal, fire crystal. Let's do ice crystal with a thermal shock effect. Let's try. We're going to try to get a thermal shock effect. With fire and ice, your potency has to be high, right? So let's see about this. Okay, so I want to do two. And let's see, similar process as before. I'm just going to say a white ice crystal. I think that's what I said, something like ruby fire crystal. I'll say white ice crystal. What's the name of that one? This one's ice. We have to have high potency, so I'm going to say 8. And it is a crystal. Does a crystal and crystal can match? Let me see. I've forgotten. I said it didn't. What were my rules? Let's see. What was the crafting table? Where's the rules? Not the adding, but the actual rules. If you add, uh, if I add something that is not, yeah, they're compatible, I know. But what about the type? I don't remember what the type's added. Let's see. There we go, types. Okay, so if I add fire and ice, we should get a thermal shock effect, I think. And well, I'm looking at it right now. But I don't know about, I don't think I did anything with crystal and crystal though. So if I add crystal and crystal, it should just be a mixture. So I should get a mixture with a thermal effect if I add another crystal. I'll check that because that will check this case right here. And you need to check them all, right? So let's try doing that. Um, Now, what do I want here? So, what happens with two legendary? And what was my rule for legendaries? I think two legendary gives you a bonus, if I remember correctly. I think that's what I'll do. Yeah, two legendary gives you like a zero point 0.5 bonus. So I'll do a pretty high quality one, I think. I'll do legendary. Okay, let's attempt crafting. But it failed. It failed. These items are not compatible. I'm not sure exactly why they're not compatible because I don't have like it show me which ingredients are in there. So why are they not compatible? Um, we can always debug and find out what rule this actually passed. Let's go into attempt crafting and find out exactly what rule, because it's probably just a rule issue, not really, because what it did is say the check compatibility. I can actually go to the check compatibility method and check there and see which one messed it up. Just to make sure that everything, where's the, there. Um, Run and start debugging. Let's see if I've got this, and I should be able to debug if it gives me time. Oh no, it's running. Okay, sometimes debug I have issues with. I might not be able to debug it because I'm using because it's running. Where is it running at? Thank you. I know. Let me see. There we go. Now I guess now it ended it. So it's try to. I think I have to re-add because it's rerunning the program. It was already running. I didn't exit it out, and so now we're debugging. We're running it again. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Ruby. Fire crystal. I'm going to do fire. I'm going to do 9. I'm going to do 1. I'm going to do 4. And for the 2, I'm going to do white ice crystal. And then I'm going to do 2. And then I'm going to do 8 is what I did before. And 1 and 4. And we want the temp crafting with it. All right, so now we're up here debugging it. So let's see what we've got. In slot 1, just to make sure, yeah, we got Ruby Fire Crystal with 9 legendary. So it's not like an issue with slot 1, and it's not an issue with slot 2. It's in one of our rules that is making this happen. Um, and I'm just going to go line by line. The first potency and the second potency are too high. That's interesting. So I should have actually done 2 times max potency on that rule for the can exceed max potency because you want to be have or max potency. Yeah, I think I should have done 2 times max potency here because you do want to have a potent item of 9, a potent item of 9 to be able to add together. So this math is slightly off here. I should do 2 times max potency. That would have been overpowered items since we're adding the two together. There we go. That should work. I have to redo that. Let's see if I can start debugging again, and we'll see. Yes, it has to exit out because I didn't exit out, so it will take a second and it will exit out of the program. I really should remember to exit out the program. Let's see. Okay, well, do the supposed to there. No, there we go. My culture. There we go. There's the one that's running. Now we can debug. You have to exit out the program when you try to debug it because you can't have it running at the same time when you try. It only allows a single instance of that through the internal program. You can run multiple copies otherwise, but okay. One, Ruby Ice Crystal. Um, Ruby Ice. Okay, well we'll do ice, and then we'll do 9, and then do that, and then we'll do 4. All right, then 2 we'll do white fire crystal, whatever. It's the same thing, just a different name. And do that, and then we'll do 8, and then we'll do 1, and then do 4, and then successfully, and then we'll try attempting crafting. All right, so now we'll run again. Yeah, so now it's not going to have an issue because it's a 9 plus 8, 17. So we'll continue on. That's fine. There are 2 legendaries. First one's strong, the second one's strong, so that's going to be fine. I'm just going to keep seeing. All right, so it's going to craft something. And it gives us that, and that's probably going to be pretty high quality given that we get a bonus. We get an 85%, I think. Did we get 85 or 90? It's a 0.9, I guess. And so it does return a mixture because, like I said, we did have that rule where we turned into a mixture. But masterwork mixture, 100%, is because we mixed crystal and crystal. 100% success, true, special effect, thermal shock. That's what I wanted to see. So now you even saw a little bit of the way to debug things. You can be able to run and start debugging. Just make sure that when you're doing that, you don't have one running here as well. Or, there we go. And then you can clear out this, but I've got everything not running anymore, so that's good. Okay, so the only issue I had, and maybe I can make sure that my program.cs doesn't say that in my rules somewhere, is that whenever I do the max potency, it can't exceed 20 because you're adding 2 ingredients together. The max potency may be 10, but you don't want to overpower it with, the 2 ingredients, not just the 1 ingredient. That's the problem. So that should actually be just a simple math error where I need to multiply by 2. And everything else I'm pretty certain is going to work, but we will try. Do I have another example I put up here? Let's see. Yeah, we could do. Did we get? Yeah, we got a thermal shock effect with that too, so that even worked. Yeah, this is just going to work. I'll do one more just because, but it's going to work now. Done the run. One. I don't know. How about what's a good one to make? Let's see. What's a good one that does like some not program? I want to see my crafting table. That's got most of our rules in there. Uh, let's see. We get potion if we mix the crystal and herb. I think I want to make an herb and an urban essence. Otherwise, if I mix herb and herb, you get mixture. But I want to get something else. So let me do an urban essence with earth and air to give us a dusty whirlwind effect. Or no, how about spirit? That would make more sense. Herb, essence, spirit, spiritual infusion, elixir. Um, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. how potent or how much quality is. Let's make them. We can't have weak with strong, but we can have average, so might as well make them average. So I'm going to call this, and I'm making an elixir. I'm just going to call this, I don't know, noir, opal, that's what it's that thing. I have no idea. Don't drink this. Don't drink this. Um, I think fire. No, I was doing earth and air. And I'm going to do, what was the average quality? It's like five-ish, I think, somewhere around there. I'm just going to do five. I don't remember exactly what my qualities were. And it's going to be a herb, and it's going to be a rare. And then I will do a two. I will do, this is going to be, let's see. No, let's do green on. This is gonna be a add an herb or add an herb, right? Let's see. I added before a herb, so I even called the drink an herb. All right, so, so I'll call this a cactus, and that'll be a drink. Agave. There we go. Just four and seven. And we will go ahead and do four for essence. And we'll do a rare with rare. Okay, so let's see what we actually made. Failed because they're not compatible. I've forgotten what I actually did here. So I can't even. All right, so I would have to actually check to see that in debug mode. And I probably should have. But let me check in debug mode just to see because I don't even know what rules I just ran into. But that's the thing is that you have to remember your rules for your game. And that's why you have to create, for crafting things, you probably need to create many rules. I only created a few. I mixed, I know an herb and an essence, but apparently um, maybe they were not compatible is what it says. So to check compatibility, that should be okay. But because one of them was I did earth and they were opposing. I did earth and air and they were less than eight. That's why. That's why they failed. So you have to remember your rules. Okay, fine. I think that'll be probably good enough for tonight anyway, because you can keep creating things, but the system is working the way it should. It's just I can't remember my rules right now. Like I see where I failed that one because I made the potency less than eight and they were opposing elements. I should have made both of them nine or more if I were going to do opposing elements. But I didn't. I'll do one more just because I need to see one more success, I think. And we'll end on a success. We'll do one. I don't know. Jesus, let's see. Um, no, I don't have amulet, so I have a metal. Opal. That's a metal. Why not? Why not? We will do ice. Just making sure that if I do a low potency, I don't pick fire. So I will do six on potency. And it'll be metal, and it'll be an uncommon metal. And two, and let's say, am I mixing two metals? What happens if I mix two metals? It's not really, I don't think there's anything crazy with two metals. You can mix them just fine. But if you mix any, what do you get if you mix two metals, though, is my question. I don't really have two metals to mix, so what do I want out of this? Maybe I'll do a crystal and metal and get an amulet out of it. Let's get a crystal. Okay, so we will say that this is a ruby. Um, why not? Now, the last one I did, and I'm going to look just to make sure. The last one I did was ice, so don't do fire. If I'm going to do low potency, don't do opposing elements. That's pretty much what my rules said. I will do spirit since it has no opposition, but we'll do some interesting things because if we do spirit, it has its own rules. And I'll do 4. And this one, I want to do, I just did a metal. I want to do crystal now, I think, right? I just did metal, I think. Yes, so I want to do a crystal. And I'll do rare. Okay, now we'll try crafting. There we go. We got an average amulet. We got spiritual infusion because it was spirit. We got 50% quality on it and it was successful. We got an average amulet. That's what I kind of expected out of that. Cool. All right, then we'll exit. Good. And clear. All right, so I hope you learned quite a bit tonight. There's actually a lot that you can go through. Starting to get used to switch expressions, that sort of thing, which is new. Well, maybe new for some of you, maybe not for others. But there's a lot of information that we went through. I will eventually post the code after I might look and see if anything needs cleaned up, like the indentation and stuff like that. But I'll post a link to the code, and I will also post a nice little challenge for you afterwards in the description of the video. I'll have to work on that first, so I hope you enjoyed the stream today. There's pretty much a lot of information. We created a magical crafting system that taught us about different ways we can make decisions in our code. Most importantly, we learned that different situations call for different tools. Simple checks work best with if statements. Multiple related conditions might be best with a switch. Complex object property checking becomes clear with pattern matching, and it's not always about the newest feature, it's about choosing the right tool for the right situation. The crafting system showed us how these pieces can work together in a real program. And as you continue developing your own programs, you'll find yourself reaching for these different types of conditional tools, like tools in a toolbox. Each one is ready to help you express your program's logic in the clearest way possible. There are so many different ways that we did things and so many different ways that you can change, you can do it as well. I'm going to leave you with a programming challenge that will be in the description, but I'll have to get that prepped. That will take some time to complete and use the same concepts we used here, but will be quite different. So I'll post a link to it in the description of this video, and when I export it to my YouTube channel, I'll also have it up there. I'll also have this stream up for longer than usual since this is not really a lecture stream. It's a programming challenge that doesn't matter where you are in like my book for this. It can be just fine to be standalone. So this should come in handy basically no matter where you are in your programming journey. And as for my actual students, I'll upload the code and challenge in addition to its learning. Again, I hope you enjoyed the stream, learned some things. So happy coding, and bye.